Welcome to Lunch with Biggie, a podcast about small business and creatives sharing their stories and inspiring you. My guest today is a designer who, after years of struggling to be a full-time artist, finally took a chance and hired himself. He's created an amazing outdoor-inspired brand where he went out every weekend and was selling at local markets in Denver. Now his products are sold in over 100 retailers and in every REI in the U.S. Please welcome the owner and designer of Atomicchild, Jimmy Bryant. What's going on, Jimmy?
Not much, man. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you, man. I really appreciate you taking a few moments to have a little lunch break with me. I always like to ask the question, "What's your go-to lunch or sandwich?"
I'm 47, so the answer should be like salads and a walk.
No.
But I have a pretty terrible. If you give me the choice, I'm gonna go to like a sandwich shop, burger joint. I mean, those are my things: burgers, sandwiches. We have a place here called Chiba Hut. I love that place, super good. But I'm always down for just this. I mean, even a McDonald's hamburger. Hey, I'm an
Yeah,
easy
all
guy.
in my, and like as you say, especially I'm older too. I'm about to turn 50, so like I get it. All in moderation. Like you could obviously enjoy all those things, and yes, have the salad and do the walks, but still enjoy all the foods and all the goodness. So I definitely understand that. So Jimmy, I want for people who have like obviously I know who you are, and that's one of the reasons why I wanted to chat with you. But for someone who's never seen your brand, can you kind of describe your art style and tell them how it's kind of evolved?
Sure, yeah. I mean, the real quick one is just outdoor apparel brand, all inspired by nature, and then it's just all drawn by me. Do everything from stickers all the way up to custom bags, apparel, everything in between. As far as my styles, I would say I've been running this thing for 10 years or so at this point. So if you go back to 2016, I'm definitely a little different style than what I'm doing now. I think in 2016 I was really deep in that bold line style, like probably most of us were, because it's so popular. And obviously, Draplin made it super popular and brought it all back to attention to everybody. So I was definitely doing my version of that. And then over the years, I think I've found different inspiration, and kind of where I'm at now is like I would probably say 6, 7 years ago, I started doing like just looking at old Boy Scout patches, and they were just kind of like super simple, like stuff from the 50s, 60s, 70s. And a lot of that had to be simple because they were just designs that were getting screen printed or embroidery on felt, and they were all being made here in the United States back then. And it was all just really simple designs that worked really well at small sizes because that's what they needed to be. They didn't need to be super complicated. So that's kind of what started the illustration style where I'm at now. I kind of started there, and then I've just slowly worked it up to have more colors, more detail. But that's kind of the direction where I'm at now. I really just like the kind of instant readability and I guess producibility, if that's a word, of that style. So that's kind of where I'm at now.
Okay.
And it's
I
all
love that.
digital. I do everything digital.
I mean, it's awesome. And I'm pretty sure, like, and if you're listening to this, you probably, without even knowing, you probably have either seen something from Atomicchild, or you've, on a car, on a water bottle somewhere at a national park when you've gone shopping. I mean, you've probably seen it somewhere because, as I mentioned, like, and this is the part where I'm kind of during my research, there were some things that I kind of was like, man, I really want to ask him these things. Like, I know in my intro, I talked about you taking a chance on yourself and you creating the brand like Atomicchild. Can I talk a little bit about like what triggered you to say, I'm gonna create this brand? Because I know you've tried previously and like before all the iterations, like one or two other brands before you got to Atomicchild. So like I want to know, like, what was it that made you said, this is what I want to do, this is Atomicchild, and I want to sell at markets?
Yeah, I mean, I've basically been using this moniker since 2003 or four, the Atomic Child name, and I've kind of run a bunch of different ideas under that. So really, to get to this point, it really just started when I was working at a place where we produced products for people. So I did that for about 4.5 years, and then that was really the first time I ever had a job where I sat at a desk. Previous before that, I was kind of working in the construction industry. So like, whilst I was behind a desk, I was also out delivering equipment and cleaning stuff. So I didn't really have as much time as I did when I got my first creative job. So I was sitting behind a desk and I started listening to podcasts, and I started listening to Adventure Design in Design about 10 years ago, and they just were talking about how they used to go to markets and sell their products, and I'd never even heard of that before, or at least I'd probably seen it, but I just never put it in my head that that's something you could do. So I started just making simple products. I really started with one thing, just a stupid pin that I made. because even back then, like enamel pins were just massive, huge. And then I just started selling them online and just working there. I had connections to make my own products, so I just started doing that. And then I found got into a show, and I think my first show, the weekend, I probably did $800 to $1,200 or something like that on a weekend, the first time ever. And I know in 2017, which seems like a whole different world ago to this point, that seemed like a lot of money to me compared to what I was getting paid monthly. It just kind of went off in my head of like, what am I doing? Like I can go on the weekends and make as much money as I do in a full time job.
What at what point did you get to the point, was it like once you kind of started, and obviously and it started evolving from like the one product to multiple products, and I know you've had an evolution of like, space because of growth and all those things, but at what point did you kind of go, hey, I'm ready to quit the design job to I'm going to do this full time? Was there like a tipping point that led you to to make that decision? I'm like, I'm going Atomic Child full throttle full time.
So it's kind of goes in different stages. So I tried once before when I had like when I was at my regular job. So basically, I was doing band merch design, which, if anybody here knows, is super fun and cool because of the clients, but the pay for the most part. Now there are some companies that'll pay you all right, but for the most part, it's really bad. So I was doing a lot of that, and then I really thought I could go full time doing that, and I tried it without doing any savings or anything. So I quit my job, did all that, all the dumb moves. Didn't prepare. Just thought it was going to work out, and obviously that didn't work out. So I failed, got super broke, had to go live with move with my parents. Like I went down to zero again, basically. Luckily, I could go with my parents. So I tried that, and then I started working at the job where I was a quote unquote art director, is really a product manager, production manager. And I just took it slow. I started doing the shows, and that was probably about 3 years into working there. And I was doing that every weekend, and I was like, okay, so how can I make enough money um, to quit this job, or at least to pay my rent? That's all I really cared about then. So I found like a utility client and they were like, it was a soda company that needed art direction and just help creating assets for all the things they do. And I was like, well, if you pay me, and that was what my rent was, I think it was $1,000. And I was like, if you pay me $1,000 a month for 4 days of work, I'll come into your office and I'll do that. And then that's when I actually was able to take the leap because I knew my rent was covered and I could just go start doing markets every weekend. So, it was a learning lesson of doing it before and just completely bombing it and then making sure I was prepared and I had saved money this time. So I had probably about, I don't know, like 6 months worth of rent saved up, which back then was a lot for me. So yeah, it was just more prepared, and I had a utility client to cover at least my rent. Now, obviously, back then I was the family, so I was
Yeah,
also way
it's a
easier.
different situation.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, the second time around, I saved up and was more prepared than just jumping into it.
Yeah. No, I get that. And I know through your history and your story, because I know you've lived, I want to say South Dakota at one point, you've lived in Colorado, you've lived in a variety of different areas. And I have heard you say like you've kind of lived in the middle of nowhere. I'm just kind of curious on like how that influenced your art and the love for the outdoor. Cause obviously your brand is an outdoor nature brand. Like, can you talk a little bit about that? Like where that inspiration comes from, and then and in that, and also in that part of that, I guess the creative aspect of like, are you taking pictures of things as you go and you're in nature and you're on walks and things like that, or hiking or things like that? Like, tell me a little bit about what that love of nature and the outdoors and how it inspired the brand.
Sure. My dad was in the Air Force, so I was born in Maine. It was a place called Limestone, Maine. The city's still there, but the Air Force base isn't. And that's basically right on the border with Canada. So that was way in the middle of nowhere. And then we got transferred to South Dakota. I lived on an Air Force base for a few years, and then he retired. And we got a farm, and I grew up on a farm. We lived out in the plains in the middle of nowhere, and just I was able to go and explore and do whatever I wanted, and I really loved it. And was able to see the night sky, which I miss a lot living in close to a big city now. And just growing up like that, I don't even, it's not even like a thing where you're like, oh, I like the outdoors. You're just outdoors. You just do it all the time. And everything you do is outdoors. And then obviously I moved to Colorado for college and, outdoor casual life. That's the culture. That's everything. That's people don't dress up. Everybody wears hoodies and, that's the whole thing. And obviously you're by the mountains and so many different parks. So it's all just kind of like, I've just always grown up that way, and then moving here just kind of really doubled down on that. And then also for all you other creatives, it's way easier to draw a tree than it is a pair of hands. So
Very true. Very true. Where so you mentioned about Atomic Child, you've had the name since like 2003. Like what is like where did the name come from, Atomic Child?
So really, it's just one of those things where in college, it was definitely like this isn't a name I thought I would still be using 26 years later. I made this up as a kid. A kid. I was 21, 22. But so my favorite artist in college was Keith Haring, and he kind of had this little drawing that he did called the Radiant Baby, and I just made up this name, Atomic Child, based off of that. And it was just a time when everybody was making up artist names. And also, my government name is James Bryant, which is like so generic, not memorable. So I came up with Atomic Child, and I just used it ever since. And really, I probably should have picked a different name because it really makes no sense. But it definitely is something that stands out now, and there's not really most nature brands are trying to like outdoor supply or gear, and I'm just Atomic Child. It's there, and it starts with an A, so whenever there's a listicle, like I'm usually towards the top, which is helpful.
I like that. I didn't that it's one of those things where I'm like, I always was curious. I was like, that was like on my list of like must have questions because I was just like, I'm like, where did the name come from? Because I'm like, what does it like stem back to? So that definitely answers that. I want to talk a little bit about because I think a lot of people when they're starting out or even in small businesses, and I even mentioned this before, like yes, you are in like all the REIs in the US and like and you're in hundreds of retail shops, but and doing via wholesale and everything like that. But I want to talk a little bit about like the importance of selling like in person at a market. Talk a little bit about the importance of being in front of a customer, being able to get that like that energy, that rapport, that whole thing. Because I mean, even in your growth, and we'll talk about other things that you guys are the brand has grown into, like you're still going out and about into the marketplace and in selling at markets and out doing markets and outdoor things, events. So can you talk a little bit about the importance of that and why that's such an important thing even to this day with your for Atomic Child?
Yeah, I mean, I think ultimately it's a necessity, but it wasn't a necessity that I really knew that I needed or existed until I started doing it. I think the biggest thing, in like even now in 2026, I think with AI and everything, I think just more in person, actual like people get together and have experiences. Like those are things people are gonna want more and more. And like, not to divert from the question real quick, but I think with the rapid like growth and like how AI is changing and everything, and no matter how you feel about it, how any of us feel about it, it's happening, it's gonna happen, it's gonna keep doing it. I think the internet is gonna be so like maybe uninteresting. I mean, I know I feel it at my age of like social media is so just I don't care. I really, if I didn't have a brand, like I wouldn't even. I don't think I would care. But I just think it's just going to be so over, like taken over by AI images and video and whatever, and you're just not going to know it's real or not. So it's like I just think people are going to be pushed more and more to do real things. That being said, I think in any career, but definitely in the creative career, because in this career, I guess if you go work at a firm or something, there's like a ladder to climb up, maybe. But like the freelance direction and working for yourself direction, there's no ladder. It's really just a scatter shot of ropes and rocks and like jumps and falls, and like there's no direction. But like networking is so important and getting out there is so important. I mean, the only reason I got into REI was because I met somebody to market, that wouldn't have happened to me sitting in my home like on a computer. But the actual selling though is I just think it's while it has changed a lot in the last decade and more people do it, the biggest thing for me, and I don't know if a lot of people feel this way, but I definitely felt this way, is like I felt like I never had a home. I didn't like feel like I was accepted by design or creative. What part of the community am I? I think I have enough information now that like after a decade I can just be like, I don't know that there's a lot of creatives that really are into my artwork. And I always used to take their criticism and their words as what the world wanted. And I thought nobody liked my artwork. And I thought nobody liked it. And I really beat myself up on it because I was like, well, a lot of creative people really don't seem to dare what I do or share it, or like I'm not a cool guy, and all those things we do in our mind as creatives. We endlessly beat ourselves up and compare no matter where you're at. So I really thought nobody liked my work, and then I made some things. I set up a table. Normal, everyday people came up and were like, "I love this. I want to give you money for your artwork," and that just changed my whole mind because I was so used to a community treating me a certain way, or just like feeling my artwork wasn't at a certain level and like it needed to be, and la 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 la. And that's like a big thing. I think we all like the design community is this. The world is huge.
Correct.
And if you're selling products, you're playing to the world, not the design community, unless you're doing like brushes and design specific content, but that's not me. So that was a big thing for me, was just like going out there and selling in the real world proved to me that there's an audience, a customer base, and it really just changed my life. And I think if I wouldn't have done that, I wouldn't have realized there was a market for my work, because I only was taking in what other creatives were kind of sending my way.
Yeah, no, and I totally get that. And I think, I mean, obviously my brand is like a sandwich themed clothing brand. So like obviously like people already go, why do you do this? Why do you want to do this? And I have a love for sandwiches, and like literally, and my favorite thing to do is to be able to do markets, to be able to have that dialogue and conversation with them. And it's the same thing with like whether just like in kind of like in those moments, like, yes, it's phenomenal when people buy your stuff, but you just never know who you're going to meet out in real life, and where it's going to lead to, and where it's going to like kind of like how it's going to like kind of perpetuate to something else, just because of how they remember you, or how it leads to someone else to lead telling someone else. And I think to me that's like one of the big ones, because just like you use the example of like the creative, like, to design being so small on the internet, we're like a speck. The internet, even our brands on the internet are a speck, you know, in the grand scheme of things. Like, even if you did have millions of followers, there's still people that have no idea, there's Instagrammers that have millions of followers that I'm like, my daughter will be like, oh yeah, so and so. And I'm like, who's that? She's like, well, she's got 30 million followers. I was like, I don't know who that is.
We're on a different
So
algorithm.
yeah, they're not on my feed, so I don't know. But so no, so I totally get that, and I do think it's important to be able to do that. I think you kind of build, and I'm pretty sure, just like I've seen when like I saw during when you were one of your presentations that you were doing, and it's the whole thing of like scalability, because like obviously like you started originally with like two tables, bed sheets, and a tent, and you kind of develop now to this massive, like, you have like tripped out, like, beautiful vinyl, like the whole car, like the whole van's done. You have like the tent, everything is like, like there's a certain level of branding on it, but that's because you've developed it and build that
Yeah.
in your
Accumulation.
evolution.
It's an accumulation of things. It's not like today it's easier too. You can just go get all that on the internet. But yeah, I mean, you don't need all that to start. Just a table, and it doesn't have to be anything crazy. You don't have to have a lot of stuff. Start small, start simple. Don't invest a lot of money. Go out there and talk to people face to face and see what they want to buy. The cool thing too is it's like, even though I've been doing this for 10 years, and like in Colorado, like I have hit it pretty hard in this state, but like still, even going out there today to this, like just this last weekend, like I just did one the other day. People still come in, they're like, "Oh, you're the person who does that." Like they just whatever. Like it is with anything. You go into a store and like you just see things sitting on a shelf. You don't like think it's a thing. You're just like, this is a product on a shelf. And then when people see you out there in the real world, they're like, "Oh, you're a real person. This is a real thing." Like that's just a connection you can only get that way.
No, I wholeheartedly agree. You and like I said, like I mentioned, I appreciate sometimes people saying things on threads. Like I know you like you had there's a one particular one that you used that I kind of wanted to talk about, which was, and I think I even commented on thread, like I want to ask you about this, because brands big and small probably go through this. The idea that your brand's very successful. You started in 2018, yet you still kind of have the same thoughts that run through other people's brains after being so many years, like looking back, like, like, when will I get my big break? When does it pop? Will I go viral? Like, I think like that is the hardest. Like, I appreciate you writing things like that, because for me, it's like, I always, you'll have those moments, and you probably, even with all the success you've had, you have probably your moments of doubt, of like, what the hell am I doing?
For
Or
sure.
why is this happening or whatnot. So I kind of wanted to kind of get a little bit about like how do you ground yourself when it comes to something like that, and kind of like look at, and at the same time, like, yes, it's sometimes it's hard not to, with social and everything, to kind of be like comparison, but how do you ground yourself, and at the same time, like, I don't know, like, take stock of what you've created and what you've already done in these last 10 years.
Yeah, I mean, I guess everybody does this, but I just think like in the creative industry, since we already live in our head so much, it just gets worse. But I think the first thing to realize, it's like everybody thinks business is this, whereas business is, yeah, I'm the best. Oh, what do I do with my life? Oh, yeah, so like it's a wave, and I've been bigger than I am now. We're a pretty small team now again, and you're always riding a wave, and you're always having to change and adapt. So no matter what anything looks like from the outside, I mean, this is in my house. I'm in my house. I'm not. So it's like it's an endless journey of ups and downs. It's not just up and to the right or left or whatever that saying is. So I guess, yeah, I'm always, even after a decade, like I feel, and it's just from watching a lot of that stuff. You just think, like, you think there needs to be this moment or this thing, or like we should be hit this point. And I definitely still feel that, because I feel like, I mean, I've sold millions and millions of dollars of stuff, and like you think, oh, like you're gonna get out there, and like people will know who you are, and like things will just take off, and somebody will do this and that, and it's not that way. It is that way for some people, but I think, and I have to look about and think about my career a lot, quote unquote. Uh, like how did I get here? Hard work, lots of hard work, and just putting myself out there, and not a lot of like big, huge success or these things. So I just always have to remind myself of that. Like, well, this is the path that you're on. This is how it has worked so far. It'd be great if there was one of those moments, and I definitely would love one of those moments, but I'm still gonna go out on the weekend and sell my stuff and sell online and do all that. But yeah, I mean, it is an endless comparison, and that can kind of rob you a little bit. But I don't think it's bad either, because it just I think the biggest thing is you have to decide what success is, and like not let other people decide what success is. We definitely do that a lot now, and I definitely do that sometimes. But I also like think about my wife and my daughter and our house, and like this is like crazy to think about. Everything we have, or like not like love and like our family, that sort of thing, but like as far as like monetarily, the things you have to live your life, is because my artwork was sold, and that is rad, and that is awesome. And like if you told 15-year-old me that, like I wouldn't believe you anyways, because I didn't think that was possible. So you got to decide your own success, figure out what that is. What is your success? Is your success making 100 or 200 extra dollars a month? Good, then that's success to you. Let that be your success. Does it, if it needs to be 1,000 or 10,000 or a million, whatever success is to you. And also another thing is, success in your mind, and when you start doing this, is going to change. It's on this is the goalpost, and this is you, and it's just, you can't catch it, and it always moves. Because like I had a number in my head when I very first started this. I was like, if the business does this much money, I am set for life. I'm doing 3 or 4 times that, and I'm not set for life, and I'm working my ass off. So it's like, it's just in your head, and you have to decide what success is for you, and not beat yourself up too much, even though you're gonna do it anyways.
No, and that's very true. And I think it kind of evolved, and just like you said, it's like an evolution. Just like your business evolves, that may evolve as well. Because in the beginning, you may have had, just like you said, certain thoughts of what you wanted it to be, and then now you're like, okay, well, this isn't what it is, but I am successful. I'm just, and but the number, and it's kind of like, it's just like your business. It evolves. It's just like a level of, like you said, the goalpost moves. And I think that's so accurate, because when you're going through it, a lot of times there's a lot of comparisons. It's a lot of that kind of comes back to the battle of creativity, of yourself being the creative person. Like, will this idea bomb, not bomb? Is this going to be this is going to be the product that's going to, like, this is going to blow up, everyone's going to love it, and then it doesn't, and you're like, but I still love it. But then you still got to keep creating, because that's kind of what it is, and that's kind of how you're built. And so I get that. It's a tough one sometimes when you're dealing with it, especially the longer, because and that's one of the big things, and you probably have seen it. There must have been many brands that were around the same time that you started. And when you go back and you turn around and you look, and you're like, there's not as many are with me as I was when I was there, because like they've just didn't, either they didn't evolve, or it just, they like, they're certain opportunities, or who knows what it was, but it just didn't transpire, and you're still here and still creating and still selling.
Especially doing markets, like being out there. Like if I, like, just this weekend, I was talking to somebody I know, because there's only a few of them left. Like if I look at 10 years ago doing markets, and I've been doing them for 10 years, there's 4 people maybe left. That's it, that are doing it. So it's a long, hard road, and selling products, for anybody that's ever done that, is super stressful, takes a lot of time, and it's a constant cash eater, because you're always buying new stuff. Because what's awesome is you're like, oh, I just bought 144 of these hoodies. I just sold them all. Oh, I need to order more. And there goes, a certain percentage of the money you just made, and you can pay taxes and blah, blah, blah. So it's like selling your own products. I mean, obviously there's different things to sell, but like apparel is a cash eater and it's rough. And the economy changes.
Yes.
There's times where it's great because you're just set something out there and everybody has a ton of money and they're just taking it and everybody's happy go lucky. 2019, if I would have known that that was like the peak financial world, like when I kind of early on, it was awesome. Like it was so easy to make money. The last 3 years, very rough, very hard. This last year, very hard. People have a very different sense of the world, the government, how they're spending their money. People are still spending money, so don't be discouraged because people are definitely still spending money. I'm going out there and doing it. But I would say markets probably do half or less than half of what they used to do right now. And that's just to be
Yeah.
expected. It's a wave. And I think, too, another thing talking about being successful is you don't have to think about like corporations successful because that's a whole different animal. Whatever. That's just not the world we live in. What is like this year, last year? What is success for me? Survive. That's success. That's what's got to be sometimes.
For sure. I'm kind of curious because I'm in Orlando, Florida. I know you were just here recently, but I'm in Orlando, Florida, and there is a huge market scene here, which is, and I'm kind of curious, how is it in Colorado in that sense? Is like, are there a lot of markets? Like, just because obviously, like, and I don't know if you've seen this, but obviously COVID created a huge influx of people that started businesses. And so therefore there's lots of markets, lots of people, and then which makes it harder as well because you have like we have some markets here in Orlando that have over 300 vendors when they go, which is great. But at the same time, it's like you're now all competing and it makes it a little bit harder. And then there's like so many markets that sometimes you just don't know which market to go to or which one to sell at.
Yeah. No, I mean Colorado is probably one of the best states for markets. It is, or Denver, I should say. This Denver mountain area, you got a couple things going for you. You have the mountains, which are right there, which are a lot of very wealthy people live up there because that's kind of what you have to be to live up there. And also, Colorado has just been one of those states that's been lucky to not ever get really too beat up by any of the downturns. But there's so many markets. Like there was one year we were doing 7 or 8 markets every weekend, and we could have done 14. Like it is insane here. Like it is too many. It is overrun. I think about 4 years, like right, you said COVID, like after like everybody was like, this is it, everybody started businesses, but like it's oversaturated here, but there's still good ones, and there's always new people coming in because there's so many here. It's just like you could literally just do that. If the economy was great, that would be sick because you're just going out there doing it yourself and making all the profit. But yeah, no, it's one of the best. Like I've had a friend of mine who used to do them here, moved to Florida, came back and was like, they're not even close to what it is here. So it's insane in this city. It's just endless. Like once you get past January, February, all the way till Christmas, it's nonstop markets. You could do 20 a weekend if you wanted.
That's amazing. That's awesome. So you most recently we talked about doing markets. I've talked about you doing, and I know you've traveled all around the country. Like I mentioned, I've seen you in Creative South. You just did Adobe Max, and obviously I think it's so important. At what point did you, and this is more of a curious thing for myself because I've always thought the idea of like obviously own your backyard. So like own your backyard, try to like if especially if you're a brand, like own the backyard there. But at the same time, there's got to be an area where you got to, once you own that, you start kind of, or at least building something, you kind of start going and building out. What's the furthest, because you've traveled, I mean, like I said, you've traveled all the way to Georgia, you've traveled to Florida. Like how, at what point, like where was your uptick or what was your decision making on like, okay, I'm going to make the investment to now start doing larger events or going out to bigger events and making that investment in there? Because that's always a tough one when you don't know how it's going to go or what it is. I mean, there's a lot of unknowns there. So I'm always kind of curious on like, what were some of the deciding factors that you're like, okay, I'm ready. I think it's time for me to take this to the next.
So I think as far as like when I go out and do markets, I have yet to just take my brand on its own and be like, I'm going to go try this random event in a city. But basically with all the markets that I have done, it's either a design conference or design focused. So I know that's like my crowd, but it's usually just if I get invited there. So like, I don't remember how many years ago now, but Mike was like, hey, why don't you come out and Creative South? And I did. And then he was like, why don't you come back the next year and talk? And I was like, I did. So I had it like, for me, as long as I can go somewhere and like sell merch, then I'll go. if I cancel merch, I'm not going, because like it has to pay for it, it has to pay for itself. So I like to either, when I am taking that risk, I like it to either try to break even on those kind of endeavors, so at least pays for it, or I'm getting paid to speak or something, which is usually just a little bit, but that's fine. But it's just the ability to have it help pay for the travel and pay for everything, so it's not a loss. And then you just get to meet. I think the biggest thing is being in a different market with those is just meeting new people and exposing your stuff to new people, because you're like talking about like owning your backyard. Like I have trampled the grass flat in my backyard, and not any little thread that pops up, I go put my foot on, So you got to get out and go to your neighbors and, see different people. But Adobe was cool because it's just like a whole different, like, that's like our huge, big corporation thing. And that's just a whole different crowd. And like, even to this day, like, I feel like I'm pretty removed from a lot of the creative stuff because I just live in my own little world, and I have for the last 10 years. But like going there, like I always use like Illustrator, Photoshop to just draw with my mouse and like make images. Like that's what I use the programs for. But like there's this whole, and like I'm sure most people know this, but I just kind of forget. There's this whole group of people that just use the programs every day for just regular design tasks and all kinds of businesses. Like there was so many schools there, and like people just doing, the odd graphic design jobs that every corporation needs at this point. And like just to go there and like meet all those people and just a whole different crowd than I'm that usually sees my stuff at a market. That one was wild though, because there was like people there from Disney and like all the bigs. Like I think that's like that was the craziest one, because it was just so many different people from different organizations there.
Yeah. That that's got to be one of those where, and that's why I was always kind of curious, because I'm like Adobe Max, like I see those and I'm just like, man, I'm like, this is kind of got to be insane for when you're a creative and an illustrator and designer, and just kind of here you are selling your product. That's always I got to figure, like that's always got to be a different, like exciting, and at the same time kind of like, well, will they like my stuff, will they not like my stuff?
Yeah.
I think that's kind of one of those, like I could see that being like I call it, for me at least, it's always in my world, it's always like imposter syndrome, when it's like when sometimes when you're like for speaking, and when I'm speaking and doing certain things like that. So I totally get that. One thing that you've recently done, because obviously we've talked about, like I said, doing markets, going out and about. You did something just recently that I think is really cool. You guys opened a storefront in Fort Collins, Colorado. What led you guys to the decision to do that? I know it's a family-run business. I know you got your family. Your family even helps with it. But like, what made you decide to do that endeavor of like, because that is a pretty big task to do. You just added another layer of it, but like, what made you decide to do it? And tell people a little bit about it.
Yeah, it's a few different things, a few different levels. Over the years, I've always like, I think a lot of us, like, you're like, oh, I need to get wholesale and get all the other accounts, and like when you do that, it's good. And then like when you get to a big level like that, it can be really good. But you're still like, people don't connect. Like my eyes and your eyes are always looking at things and seeing who's making it and what's the packaging like and who did this and what and that. Normal people don't do that. My stickers are sitting at every counter in REI, and people just buy them because it's a cool sticker right there. Maybe 1% of the people. Like I can look at the clicks from the things. Like hardly anybody clicks on the QR code on those stickers, and there is thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of them out there. So most people just aren't curious in that. So they'll just pick it up and then they get it, and that's it. There's no more interaction with who that is or what that is. It goes on their car and moves further, which is sick. But they don't ever take that back to me unless they see me out or something like that. So like I've always been like, I know my work does the best when it's presented as a whole, as a brand, as me, because like people can connect to that. Piggybacking on AI, I think that's the most important thing you can do these days, is let people connect with you and who you are and what you do, because that is currently one thing that can't do. And I think we all connect with the human story. Like, yeah, my art is cool, I guess, but like ultimately, I think people want to hear and see a story of somebody who was lost and stuck and thought they couldn't make it, and we're just going to work a regular job in 9 to 5 and live paycheck to paycheck forever, and just couldn't get it, and nobody liked your work. And like that's the kind of stuff. Like I was broke, I lived at home with my parents, and like those are all real things that everybody in my 30s. It wasn't when I was in my 20s. I was a 33-year-old dude living at home with mom. It's like those are all things that people can connect with. And it's like, make me a cool sunset over a bridge in the ocean. Like that's not something they connect to. That's like, cool, sugar, like that's sugar, nice, yum, I had it. But your advantage is you. Your advantage is connecting to you. So to answer that question is, now when people, like, for me, I just feel like they walk into the store, like, it's me, it's my wife, it's my child. Like, we have a wall with all the pictures of us and like things we've done. Like, you're entering into a curated, designed room that me, my wife, intentionally designed, so like you can experience what this is. And like, that's such a bigger connection than, oh, this is a cool sticker on a shelf. Like, that's just not. Some people may connect to that, but I just feel like most people don't connect with that. And that is the biggest thing we have, is our advantage as humans, is connection, and getting people to connect to who you are. And no matter what your journey is, like, I know when you're younger, sometimes you haven't had a lot happen, so you feel kind of weird, like saying, just let people know how you feel or what's going through your head. Because when I was 20, the internet was really a different place, and there wasn't this kind of stuff. And I still had I didn't know who to talk to. I didn't talk to anybody about it. So I just, you just come up with your own theories in your head of what things are, because there's nowhere to look. Whereas now you can obviously find that. But yeah, it was just so there could be a real experience of what the brand is, and it's not just one product sitting on a shelf.
And that's an awesome, like, that's one of those things where like me and my brand, like that's one of those where I'm like, it makes sense, because to me, that is the part where it drives home everything that you say when it comes to like being at a market, being in the, like, having that interaction in that face to face, having people being able to almost have like enter your universe or your world when they go into the store, and be able to have that. Because I think that's when, that's my favorite thing. One of the things, like, I have a full-time corporate job, and I do markets on the weekends and things like that. And the reason I do the markets is because, and a lot of my coworkers sometimes will be like, why do you work like a full-time job and do all these things? And I do them because I have a passion for it, but also because of the fact that I want people to see my passion for what I'm creating or wanting to create and what I'm doing. And then I think when they start seeing that, there is a transformative aspect of that in meeting in person and seeing that. And then even if it's not a product being purchased at the time, it's that connection, like, oh, he's Biggie, he's the sandwich guy, like he loves sandwiches, like that's, oh yeah, I know that guy or whatever. And then it's kind of like how it kind of goes, or builds with the brand. So I totally understand that. And I love that. And I'm super excited. I love seeing the pictures of what you guys have done and what you created. It's beautiful inside the store, what you've created. And it definitely showcases what your brand has created in the last 10 years.
Yeah. And another thing too, like, we, a little bit strategic is this was literally an abandoned building. It was a dirt floor when we looked in there, and it was super small. So it was like, it's a risk, obviously, because we have to have employees too. You know, it was a low rent and a really good walkable area, and it was a short-term lease. I was like, well, we're gonna try it. Like, this is the place to try it. So yeah, that was just another thing too. It's like, don't do this if you have like a $10,000 rent or something. Like,
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
a pretty cheap rent for a good spot. So that was another big reason. But yeah, I just think like it's so hard for somebody to get the idea of what you do or who you are. I mean, even a kiosk out at a market gives somebody an idea of what you are or what you do just by how you set it up and present yourself. Whereas you just don't. I mean, you can get that online, but it's just not the same thing. I mean, it's so cool to see people walk in there and just be like, oh, I really love this place. Like, I love the color on the wall. It doesn't feel like a retail store. And it's like, exactly. I didn't want to make another retail store. Like, we wanted to make a cozy, like, it feel like a cozy little kind of cabiny place. It's got a fake fireplace. It's, like, we just, retail's so boring these days. Like, no, but like, remember like when like Patagonia, or not Patagonia, but like, what's the wool blanket place? It starts with a P.
LL Bean.
No, the wool blankets they make. Anyways, so they used to have really, like, a lot of people used to have cool stores, and it's just like, I just feel like a lot of people don't do that anymore. And I realize it's more expensive and stuff, but it's just like every store kind of looks the same. There's no vibe. You're just like, I'm here to get something, and I'm gonna leave. Pendleton.
I think, what was it? Hamilton, you said?
Pendleton wool blankets.
Pendleton.
Like, they used
See, I'm from Florida. I have no idea. We don't have those wool blankets. And we would like one now in this weather today, but in the weathers we've been having today, because we were actually in the 20s, which is crazy to be in Orlando, Florida. So yeah, kind of nuts. Few more questions for you. One of them is, I like having my guests put things into the universe. So I want you to be able to put out into the universe what you want for Atomicchild.
Man, that has changed a lot and it changes every year. A big thing about business is it's changed every year. Some years have been excellent, some years have been not so good. So right now, currently, like I'm really just focused on what works best for my family and what works best for our time. And are we doing things that serve my family the best? I have a daughter who's 4.5. She's growing super fast. I only have so much time with her as a small little human. And do I really want to spend most of my time away doing all this just to make, quote unquote, a few more percentage points or whatever? So, I mean, like right now, my biggest thing is just I want to grow more of my online sales and do more of my sales online. That's my biggest thing right now. But it's like, I don't have any collabs or anything. I don't, it'd be cool, I guess, if some of that stuff happened, but it really doesn't matter. I don't really like doing collabs is cool, but it's for me at this point in my career, it's a money losing thing, like more money.
What about, I'm going to throw one out there for you. This is how you know I've been following you. What about putting out into the universe, wanting to do more murals? Because I know that's something you've talked about.
Yes, that is something I want to do. And actually, I just wrapped up one. So I have this credit union, which of all places you would not think that that's it, but I did a pretty big mural for them a couple years ago, and then they just reached out to me again, and I just wrapping up this mural I did. It's just printed vinyl, so I don't have to go out there and paint it, which is kind of nice. But it's a big mural, so I'll have 2 murals there. But yeah, I would love, as like far as like art, like just the creative part, and not this business side that's on my back all the time.
Put it out there, man. That's what I want. I want you to put it out there.
I would love to do murals. Like I want to do murals, and then like I think I want to try like doing fine art paintings of my designs. I've always put them on like usable products, and I've had a lot of people ask me in a few years, like, "Do you have prints? Do you have like painting, like stuff like that of my art?" And I've always thought of my art as like decorations for like real life use things that people use every day. And like now I think they like have been doing this long enough and there's enough people that like my work that I think people want to hang it in their house. So I think I kind of want to do that too.
Love it. I think that's awesome, man. It's a good evolution. I think that's and I could see that. I could see that as as a painting and whatnot. So I think that's awesome. What advice would you give someone wanting to start something?
Just anything?
Anything.
Do it. I think I think so many people get caught up in the how does it need to go? Do I need this? Blah blah. Does it need to be legal? All it's just the biggest thing. Like I can really just talk about products. Is the only way you're ever gonna know if people want your stuff or what it is to make it and go out there and sell it. And I highly suggest not starting online because unless you're one of those 1% or whatever higher there is than that, that gets super lucky and you just post something that's the most amazing thing in the world and it goes viral and then it takes off and it changes your life, which that doesn't happen to all of us regular working stiff people. You're probably going to post something online and it's not going to sell. And then you're just going to be like, well, nobody likes my work. I guess I'll just forget doing this. And then you can go out and do a market and 10 people buy your work and you're like, and like two, like I know this doesn't necessarily answer this, but like maybe you have felt this too. Like I will post artwork and especially now it gets 0 love. So like I think we just all know the algorithm sucks and Instagram sucks now, but like you just feel like no, your artwork is useless and it's not. You just haven't found your audience. For the most part, I feel like most people just haven't found their audience. Like it doesn't matter what it is as long as it is true to what you are, I guess, and what you're into. There's an audience, man. You just have to find it. Yeah, I kind of forgot the question now, but yes.
No, that's perfect. That's perfect. Because I agree with it. I mean, the idea of starting it and actually making it and actually doing it and not getting in your head. I think all those things are accurate. And that's something that you said is very accurate. Cause like I've had conversations with my wife sometimes and my wife will come visit me at a market and she'll be like, that's a business. And I was like, yeah, because I'm like, everyone has something that they like. And you, just because you don't like it doesn't mean someone else doesn't like it. I mean, it's just kind of, you're always amazed by, I'm like, there's got to be someone else that likes what you like, especially if it's out there. So yeah, just find them, go out there and find them.
If you do 5 or 10 markets and nobody likes your stuff, then you're onto the wrong thing. Cause after you do 5 or 10, you're going to do some stinkers. So you can't, but after you do 5 or 10 and nobody likes it, then you've probably gone down the wrong path. But once you do 5 or 10, you're going to you're going to find out if you get that kind of good feedback.
How, Jimmy, how much do you think is when you've seen other businesses or brands and things like that, when they don't like, when they're like so, I guess, so vague versus being so ultra niche on their, like, on what their, like, their brand is about? Like, do you think like there's kind of like an advantage to being sometimes too broad versus being super, super niche? What are your thoughts on that?
I think it goes like anything in business. You can find the successful examples in any type of. There's people who never show their face or talk about anything, and they do just fine. And there's people that dance on camera and do stuff, and they're just fine. And there's people that do a little bit in between, and there's people that do post once a month. I mean, it's such a hard thing these days. Like, the best thing I can say is just be yourself, try to be authentic, decide what you're about, decide what you're doing. Just try to be who you are to the best you can. You don't always have to, like, and I know it's super popular these days, but like, you don't have to get involved in politics. You don't have to, like, if you want to and that's your thing, fine. Be yourself. That's what you are. Just, just try to be as true to yourself as you are, and you'll find people that kind of feel the same way, because the way you feel, 300 million people, at least in our country, it's pretty hard to ship outside of our country now. There's 10,000, 20,000 people that feel the same way as you, and probably a lot more. So
I love that. Where can people follow you? Where can they shop and support you, whether it's the physical store or online? Give people that information. It'll be in the show notes as well. So as they're listening, maybe they're scrolling and checking it out.
Yeah, I mean, the best thing to do is just type Atomicchild into any search bar, and that'll be me. There's no other Atomicchild.
Which is pretty impressive. And it's funny because like I did try to search and see if like there was anything else. So again, I'm super glad that I got to ask you the question of where it came from, because I was like, where did that name come from? I'm like,
when I started, it was like
really,
it's like a band, I think, or something. And I think over the last decade, my search queues have pushed that into oblivion. So yeah, so now I pretty much own that term. There's nothing else. But yeah, there used to be when I started, and I was like, dang it.
That's great. Jimmy, I really appreciate you taking the time to chat with me and getting a chance to during a lunch break. I just think it's awesome what you're doing and what you're creating. So I definitely, I'm glad we got a chance to connect and talk. That's our show for today. Thank you so much for Jimmy Bryant of Atomicchild for being on and having a lunch break with me. Definitely make sure to check him out online. If you're in Colorado, make sure to visit him. If you see him at an event, trust me, you'll see it because he's got amazing branding, and make sure to go check it out. If you're at REI, you'll be like, oh, wow, look at that. Scan the QR code so that he sees that if someone's actually paying attention and clicking. Heck, how about just in general, even just not only for Jimmy, if you go to a store and you see something that you like and you buy it and you see a brand name, how about you go follow that small business?
Yes.
Because that's definitely is the most way to be able to help any of them.
Yep.
If you enjoyed the show, make sure to subscribe. Make sure to tell your friends. If you want to support me, check out my brand, Deli Fresh Threads. Thank you. Until next time, keep eating sandwiches and follow your passion. Thanks, everyone.